Eric, you want to kick us off?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for everybody for signing up for this second in a series of education platforms that we're putting together. Today, Scott Moody from Athlete Fit is going to present on circuit and building circuit programs for fitness and performance. Scott has been with Woodway for a long time as a customer and as a great resource for us to understand how better to implement our products. And so with that, we appreciate him taking the time out of his schedule to help present this aspect. And just like the last one, we'd love to get your feedback, and feel free to provide us with questions and suggestions on how to improve. We had a lot of feedback on the last one, very positive. A lot of requests for us to dig a little deeper into that subject. So Paul and our team are working on what that deeper program looks like. So we definitely are listening, and we'll try to accommodate that. So all you, Scott, thanks.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, so this presentation was actually designed as a 3-hour workshop at first, which we've condensed down to just kind of hit the key points. And so if there is some wanting to dig a little bit deeper into any of these aspects, I'd love to talk about that a little bit later if we have time. But we just called it Stronger, Faster, Fitter, which is building circuit programs for fitness and performance. Basically how to organize group settings, group team structures, so that we can still be getting performance gains in certain areas in larger group structures in an organized manner. So to give you a brief introduction, kind of a timeline of how we got started into this, we started in 1999. We were a performance training facility. We had a singular focus within the groups that came in. It was a speed group, and we did everything from sprint drills to plyos to different types of speed activities. Our volleyball players were more vertical aspects, jump training programs, power and strength-based facility. We had great results, built quite a bit of a following. We're seeing 300 to 400 athletes a week coming in there, but in these singular focus groups. In 2003, we were introduced to Woodway we added Woodway Force treadmills to the program to help with our speed development, our power development. And this allowed us to see more athletes in a smaller space, so that we could really kind of refine some of the speed aspects, merge people on and off the Force treadmill. As we were able to add another element to our program. So it allowed us to see more people in less space. By 2006, we had so many people that our coaches wanted us to start organizing this as in more team-based training sessions. So we'd see the whole team at a single time. This proved to be a little bit difficult. We had mixed results with this, because now we were being asked to focus on multiple aspects at the same time. Everything from fitness to speed to power to strength to reducing the risk of injury. And what we found is there was a lack of a singular focus to guide us, and we just didn't have enough time to get everything accomplished. So while the coaches still saw it as a place where they're getting a little bit extra fitness, the athletes that had trained with us in the past realized that they weren't really getting the results that they had before. With large groups, it became difficult to focus, as we would spend 15 minutes in one area and then rotate around 15 minutes in another area, rotate around. And the groups were kind of, it was such a mixed pattern that we really didn't feel like it was giving us the results that we wanted to see. So in 2009, we added the Woodway curve treadmills. And what this allowed us to do was, with the quick, easy on and off switch, we could have multiple players on a single curve treadmill, and we could target, different elements of speed, different elements of fitness, excuse me, with the larger teams. For example, we had 5 Woodway curves. We had 10 people on the curves, alternating in a 1-to-1 work rest ratio. while 10 other people were focused on strength, still in a 1-to-1 work rest ratio. So each coach was able to focus on 5 people at a time. So we were actually able to keep the groups relatively small, give feedback to the ones that needed it, progress the exercises in a more organized way. And these block circuits, which allowed us to alternate between some type of cardio or speed block into a strength or power block, back into a cardio or speed block, allowed us to have great results, keep the mental focus really sharp, and it allowed us to do a lot more with our training than we ever thought we would. Now, we didn't start out liking circuits. We actually didn't really want to go down this route because in a traditional circuit where you're rotating from a strength exercise to another strength exercise to another different exercise to a different exercise, you don't really get the strength gains that you wanted. You don't really get the focus that you want. It's just a way to keep people busy and build that, burn some calories, feel like you did something, sweat a little bit. And we didn't want that to be our focus. We wanted it to get back to that singular focus that we started off on. So we chose a 5-minute block approach in the beginning, and it's proven to be the best approach that we've come up with. But a 5-minute focus on a single aspect like speed on the curve, rotating into a 5-minute focus on a power aspect, back to the curve for 5 minutes on a different type of speed, or so on and so on. But this mixed approach where you're rotating on and off the curve allowed us to control the groups. And in this age of kind of attention span deficit with social media and everything else, the clients that we would see tended to like that approach because they didn't have to focus for very long, but they could keep their attention sharp for that time, and then we'd be on to something else. But we always were able to come back to that singular focus. And today's presentation will kind of show how we did that over time. This allowed us to keep the groups highly motivated, more so than we ever thought we would see. It allowed us to create a sustainable business model so that we could see a lot of kids in small space and still get good improvements. And we did see improvements in speed, power, fitness, and performance to where most of the players that go through this program are signing up again. This is what they want to do. They like this a little bit better than they've liked any other training that we've done. So this is what today's program is about. So successful programs. What does it take to have a successful program? Well, first, it needs to be enjoyable. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're not going to come back. And we needed all of our clients to find that value. If you look at this stadium sprint, exercise, this workout, for me, that's one of my favorite things in the world to do. I love that. I enjoy it. I love getting to the top of the stairs, looking down and feeling that sense of accomplishment. But for a lot of people, that's brutal, and it's not something that they enjoy. So we needed to create workouts that kind of catered to different levels and different abilities, and we needed to make them sustainable. So if I started to sprint up the stairs and was in a deconditioned state, I wouldn't be able to make it up 3 or 4 of those, let alone around the whole stadium. So we needed to create a sustainable program based around different fitness levels, different abilities, and so on. And the third thing they need to be productive. They have to have a goal, and it has to be a targeted goal approach towards an outcome or a result, which in our case was a performance on the field. Nobody really cared how much weight that they lifted in the weight room. They just wanted to be fast on the field. And we found that the effectiveness of a workout is directly related to one's fitness level multiplied by the perceived benefit. So what I mean by that is it's a multiplier. So if you don't value a particular exercise, you don't know why it's going to benefit you, you don't know how it's going to benefit you on the field, your perceived value is 0. So if your fitness level is high and you multiply that by like a 10, and you multiply that by a perceived value of 0, the effectiveness of that workout for you is still a 0. You won't put much effort into it, won't put much energy into it, and you won't get anything out of it. However, if you value that extremely high and you understand how that's going to be able to be applied to the field, but your fitness level is a 0, and I'm asking you to do this stair run, you're still going to get the effectiveness of 0. You're going to gas out, you're going to crash, and we're going to end up breaking you down. So what we needed to do was find a balance of value and adjustable fitness level. And that's what these programs allowed us to create, is enjoyable, sustainable, and productive programs. Fatigue is the #1 thing that we needed to understand. That was our controllable factor. So that was the goal of everything that we had to do. How do we control fatigue? So we need to enjoy training. It needed to be fun. And we felt that the group setting and the partner on and off the curve allowed for a little bit of competition, and if not competition, at least camaraderie and motivation. And the programs became more fun. We needed to find success, so little milestones along the way. We didn't want to overwork them or crush them. We wanted to set standards and expectations where they could find success within that workout. And we needed long-term retention for our business. So enjoyable programs lead to long-term sustainable results. And this is what we found with these, types of circuit type training programs. So sustainable programming. We need to maintain sufficient energy or manageable effort. And we do that by controlling work rest times. Using the curved treadmill to do this allowed us to control those work efforts much more efficiently, because we didn't have to have them use the increase button on the treadmill. We could actually give them a target range, and if they were slightly fatigued that day, they just slowed down, but it didn't affect our work times, it didn't affect our intervals, and we were allowed to go off effort, which was a motivating factor. We needed to provide adequate rest for recovery. And so using these with the easy on and off, you didn't have to hop off the sides of the treadmill. We could walk for recovery. We could step off and let another player go and rest for recovery. We could do jog-based exercises for recovery, but we needed to program adequate recovery into these. And we also needed to create a perfect sequencing of exercises. For instance, we wanted to be able to manage that heart rate increase over time and keep it fairly consistent. We didn't want it to get too heavy in the beginning to where they crashed. We wanted to be able to undulate those exercises so that we push during certain blocks, we recover during certain blocks. So what makes a program sustainable? So several types of fatigue that we see in our workouts. If our goal is to repeat high effort, for instance, max speed sprints over time, and we're doing a set of 5 sprints, and you see in this particular graph, the individual performed the first 2 sprints, they hit their target, and then there was this slow drop off as they fatigued. So if our problem is set to set fatigue, then the solution would be to either decrease the reps. So could we run this off a 2 rep interval instead of a 5 rep interval? Or we could increase the rest time just a little bit. So we wanted the sustainable, high level output, program. So we had to monitor our set to set fatigue. If our goal is holding high effort, and we're seeing this within set fatigue, so they were able to hit those speeds at the start of every set, but then there was a fatigue factor that came in, and they couldn't sustain that over time. Then what we would need to do is decrease the effort. So if we gave them a slightly lower target or a slightly shorter time, then we would be able to repeat each of these efforts over that series of exercises. And the third thing is accumulated fatigue. So this is focused during long workouts, and this was big for us in the beginning. Is the athletes would come in and they would start strong, and then as that fatigue would set in, you'd see the mental disconnect. You'd see the effort decrease over time. So the latter part of our workouts became a little less productive. So what we can do to accommodate that is we can either decrease the effort in the beginning, or what we did is create a better sequencing of exercises. So the whole focus of battling fatigue, for the purpose of this workshop is to create focus. We need to learn how to pace. We need to learn how to adjust and sequence the exercises so that we can get the appropriate amount of effort at the right time in the workout, which then transfers over to the field as they find ways to recover and repeat, performance in a game setting. And that was our goal. So how do we make these enjoyable, sustainable programs more productive? So what adjustments can we make in design? We can control work time. So you see here a block circuit where we started off with a strength exercise, and then in the blue graph at the top, you see our curve bouts. They are 5-minute blocks, and then the next set would be a 2-minute on, 1 minute off, 2-minute on block, into 1 minute on, 1 minute off blocks, into 30-second on, 30-second off blocks, and then back to a 5-minute continuous block. Now we wanted to control the pace, keep the pace at the same level the entire time, but we were using a curved FTG in this example, and we were increasing the resistance as the time was decreased. So we can control work time. We can control effort or speed or load. And then we also want to monitor and control recovery. So by strategically placing these exercises in this way, we were allowed to, or the athletes were allowed to recover efficiently and then be able to repeat the performance sequentially. So if you look at the exercise sequencing, we structured exercises that were a little bit more difficult in the beginning, a little bit more metabolically demanding. And then as the program went on and they started to get that accumulated fatigue from the cardio, the exercises got a little bit simpler. This is our way of that almost attacking the mental side of it, knowing that this workout's going to get a little bit easier on the strength side. I'm going to be able to recover, so I don't mind putting out the effort on the cardio portion, which allowed us to engage the athletes for longer periods of time and get a little bit more effort. So the big question is, do these workouts actually work? That depends. They worked amazing for the purposes that we were attacking. Team sports, we were looking at more of a work capacity, or building their ability to perform more work in more time at higher efforts. So would it work for an Olympic weightlifter? Probably not. Maybe in an early off season or a deconditioned time, as we're just building up that muscular endurance, that work capacity. Did they improve maximal strength with our most advanced athletes? No, but we didn't lose any strength either. We did improve speed. We did improve power. We did improve endurance. And what we noticed is this was a way to bring our bottom level athletes on that team up to the middle of the pack, our middle of the athletes up to the top of the pack. And it kept our best athletes strong, fit, powerful, to where they found value. And everybody was finding value and success within these programs. So it worked for our benefit, but primarily around work capacity, creating efficiency. So when understanding work capacity, we want to look at why we fatigue. So basically, we look at work time and effort. So in this graph, if I ask you to sprint at top speed, then you will be able to hold that speed 6 to 15 seconds, probably more like 4 to 6 seconds at top speed. And then that available energy that you have in the system is going to be tapped out, or you're losing efficiency right around that 6 to 15 second mark. And at that point, the system turns a little bit more anaerobic. And that'll carry you through the next 30 to 60 seconds with a strong effort, not quite maximal, but a strong effort. And if I ask you to keep going for longer periods of time, then that aerobic system comes in, that steady effort comes in, and this creates what we call a decay curve. And the decay curve really became valuable for us because we were able to plot different speeds along that decay curve to give different target ranges for exercises depending on what we were trying to achieve within that workout. So here's an example. So 4 tests to determine these appropriate training zones. So we started off and we wanted to look at aerobic capacity. Now we could do a 30-minute run, we could do a 1-mile run, we could do a 12-minute run. All of these things were great, but they were hard for us to do within a group setting. And it took too much time So we said, what's the minimum we can do to still attack that aerobic capacity test to be able to project out a speed or a target speed for them to run during any type of aerobic work that we might be doing in our block circuits. So what we did is we took a 6-minute test and we said, cover as much distance as you can in 6 minutes at whatever pace you feel you can sustain. We had some people that started off at a fast pace and then slowed way down. We had some people that started off, at a moderate pace and sped up. Some people walked for periods of time when they got tired and then decided to pick it back up into a run or a jog. But what we did is, by looking at that 6-minute test, we took the distance they covered and we multiplied it by 10. So if they covered 0.75 miles of distance, you multiply that by 10, their average speed during that was 7.5 miles per hour. It's simple math, allowed us to project that out really quickly without a lot of high-level calculations. And all we were really looking for with that number is a target pace. So if your speed was all over the place in this run, if I told you, okay, your average speed was 7.5, now you can look at the monitor when you're doing this type of activity, and you can dial in with that 7 to 8 mile per hour range. Gave us a much easier target. From an aerobic power perspective, we want to be between 1 minute and 6-minute runs, somewhere in there. So we decided to do 3 1-minute runs with 30-second rest. Now the 30-second rest is incomplete recovery, so it doesn't allow them to fully recover. The runs become more paced runs. And what we were able to do is the total running time on the curve was 3 minutes. So you can take the total distance, multiply it by 20, and you can get an average speed for those runs, as long as they ran for a minute, got off the curve, weren't moving the belt, got back on, ran again, got off, ran again for another minute. Now we have an aerobic power target. Muscular endurance, we ran 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off 3 times. We've done this as much as 10 times. We've done it as much as 6 times. But for easy math, we could do 3 30-second runs with a 30-second recovery, multiply that by 40, and the distance by 40, and we could get a target speed for 30-second runs. And then we would do a max speed sprint. So we did 5 sets of 5-second max speed sprints with 55 seconds rest and a 1 to 10 work rest ratio, which usually those speeds were pretty consistent. And what we would do is we would take the highest speed and the lowest speed, throw those out, and we would average the middle 3 speeds to get a max speed run. Well, now what you see is we've got this decay curve. We've got 4 plotted points. You can do it with as few as 3 points. 4 points makes it a little bit better. And now we have this nice target. So now we know exactly what the speed ranges are within an interval type training structure to give these athletes as they perform these runs. And here's an example. So if we're doing interval training and we want to do sets of 2-minute runs, and we know that their 1-minute speed is around 10 miles per hour, then we could shift that down the curve to the 2-minute mark, project the line over, and we could give them a target of 8.5 miles per hour to hold the 2-minute runs. Usually we give them about a mile per hour range. So we might say, you want to hold these 2-minute runs in that 8 to 9 mile per hour zone for this particular athlete. Okay, so work time and fatigue and energy. So neuromuscular views. So if we look at the muscles and more of a fast twitch versus slow twitch, type bout. High intensity effort, we see this research shows a 50% decrease in 1 minute with fast twitch, quick fatigue fibers. So we don't want them to drop too low. We've got about a minute to play with. So if we were doing, short bouts, we'd want about a minute of recovery between those bouts. If you look at moderate intensity effort, fast twitch fatigue resistant fibers, you've got about 5 minutes until they reach that 50% threshold. So what we were looking at is, what is the duration of the block that we can focus so we get power, speed benefits, and anything over 5 minutes, we found we would lose that speed capability, we would lose that effort, we'd lose focus, you'd lose mental focus. And so we kind of dialed in around those 5-minute blocks were perfect. And then from a low intensity effort, slow twitch, fatigue resistant fibers, you can pretty much carry that out forever. So enjoyable, sustainable, and productive. How do we continue to tie this information back to what we're trying to do with these circuits? So why choose 5-minute blocks? So if we look at the neuromuscular aspects and we plot out those fiber curves, and then we compare it to repeat max speed sprints on the curve. So this is a 5 to 7 second sprint with about 55 to 57 or 55 to 60 seconds recovery. If you notice the first 3 sprints within that 2-minute mark, okay, we are pretty much holding them consistent. And the third sprint is typically their fastest one. And this isn't an example of one athlete. This is an example of 250 athletes, their average speeds over that 10-minute set. So first 3 were fast, and that ties in with what we know about fiber type. Second 3 kind of dropped off a little bit, and by the last 5, we were unable to hit anywhere near our speed targets. So we did have that fatigue. The effort was still there. The intent was still there as they're trying to beat a new max, but anything over the 5 sprints was wasted. It was a waste of time because we weren't able to hit, our targets. So for improving strength and speed, in these sets, if we had 3 to 5 sets in 3 to 5 minutes, that was enough work that we could focus on good technique and enough rest that they could hold that effort consistent over 3 to 5 reps. And so this became very valuable. We might want to do 10 sprints, but we would do it in 5-minute blocks. We would take the first 5-minute block, do the first 5 sprints, and then we would do another activity, allow them to recover a little bit more, come back to the second 5 sprints in the second block on the curve. And what we were able to do by doing that is we were able to get more consistency. We were getting more speed late, and we were actually getting more runs at faster speeds. So enjoyable, sustainable, and productive. So why would we choose 5-minute blocks for aerobic endurance? Well, here's a graph of I think it's a 30-minute run. Average, the pace was 6 miles per hour. So they ran at 6 miles per hour. Average heart rate was 168. Max heart rate hit 177. But if you notice over the first 5 minutes, that's where we got that heart rate to go from baseline up to a point where it starts to really level off. And that is over the first 5 minutes. So what if we broke this 30-minute run up into 5-minute blocks, 5 minutes on, 1 minute off? What we were able to do is we were able to increase the speed by 1 mile per hour. We were able to drop the average heart rate and drop the max heart rate with this program. Just giving them those slight rest breaks, not pushing it too long. We still got the same distance, actually more distance, and they also had a faster speed and lower heart rate. So we reduced the accumulated fatigue, and we improved our challenged effort throughout the workout. Now, another way to do this would be to do a ladder structure. And for our soccer players, what we do is we do a simulated half. So this is it's a 42-minute workout broken into 5-minute block sections where we take the first 5 minutes is a 5-minute steady build-up, steady run. The second block is 2 sets of 2-minute on, 1 minute off. Then the third block is 3 sets of 1 minute on, 1 minute off. The middle set is 5 sets of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And then it comes back down the ladder with the 3 1 minutes, the 2 minutes, and then finishes with that 5-minute run. Now, the interesting part, heart rate got a little higher, but the average heart rate actually was lower than the steady 30-minute run. The max speed was significantly higher from 10 miles per hour up from that 6 miles per hour in the 30-second run. And the average speed was even faster. Even with the walks, the average speed was faster than the continuous 30-minute run. And most importantly, the athletes didn't fear this workout. If I told them to run on the curve for 30 minutes, they would complain. It's just monotonous. And these are my athletes, not my runners. If I asked them to do 5-minute blocks on the curve, better, but still monotonous. If I ask them to do this, which is 10 minutes longer, and speeds are faster, they actually like this workout, and they encourage me to add it in more. They came in on off days wanting to do this for extra cardio. So there's the motivation factor. It was more enjoyable than the regular runs. It was sustainable. They could sustain those efforts over time, and it was productive because it was simulating what they felt an actual game situation feels like. And we were able to hit all of our targets. So let's look at rest time and its effect. This is a study that you've probably seen before from Pearland. It's an old study, 30-second max effort sprints. I think this was done on a bike, but a max effort sprint, you can see in the first 6 seconds, your available energy is the dominant source. So what you have in the tank right there is where you're drawing most of your energy from. Anaerobic energy contribution came in dominant the 6 to 15 second mark. And this is where you feel the burn. This is where it starts to get difficult. This is where effort starts to be challenged. Coordination starts to be challenged. And you're thinking, how much longer do I need to hold this? And by the last 15 seconds, the aerobic energy system was the dominant source in this study. Now, this is typical. This is what we think of. But if we repeated this 3 times with 4 minutes rest, which seems to be more than enough rest time, it's a 1-to-8 work rest ratio. You see in the first 6 seconds, available energy is still dominant source. Okay, so we're still able to do that, but the anaerobic contribution almost disappears, and it becomes very aerobic. And they probably slowed down significantly. And this could be a couple of reasons. Maybe you didn't clear lactate as quickly. Maybe you needed to shift into more aerobic just to sustain that pace. Power dropped off, obviously. But from a mental standpoint, what I see most often is it's the fear of fatigue. Everybody remembers what that first set felt like, and they don't want to feel that again, so they slow down. And so if we can change the targets slightly and give them a slightly lower max target, instead of saying go as hard as you possibly can for 30 seconds, but give them a target that they can sustain, then over time we can see improvements, and we can start to target specific energy systems the way we want. So once again, how do we make this enjoyable, sustainable, and productive? Why choose the 5-minute blocks? So if we look at work, rest, and effort, from a muscular endurance perspective, that's that green part of the graph right there between 30 seconds and a minute is usually where we target. And when you think of this as from a weight room perspective, same thing applies. So it's that most sets are in that 20 to 30 second range. Some exercises taking as long as 45 seconds, but putting you in that muscular endurance target for longer sets. And we compare that to some of the heart rate graphs on 1-minute runs and 30-second runs. And you can see with good recovery, with a minute recovery after the 1-minute runs, we were able to repeat those. But the 30-second runs, that 30-second recovery is just not enough, and heart rate starts to continue to creep up. Whenever we see that effort is limited, they're not going to put out maximal effort. They'll probably start to pace themselves, which is not necessarily what we want. So we may consider a little bit more rest time on those 30-second blocks when we're focused on improving power endurance. So targeting that 1-to-1 to 1-to-2 recovery for muscular endurance. This challenges lactate buffering, challenges work capacity, and set us up for success in what we were able to do. So trying to get them to work harder, last longer, recover quicker. So programming, how do we weave all this information together, looking at time and effort and exercise placement? Well, we want to start off with balancing work, rest, and effort. So ideal work rest ratios. So we want to use this table, and this is kind of our guideline for creating our circuits. For improving power and speed, we want to keep the work time between 5 and 15 seconds, depending on time of the season, what the focus of the workout was, but somewhere between 5 and 15 seconds. And we want to keep the rest time 30 seconds to 3 minutes. So a 1 to 5 to 1 to 10. Anything shorter than that, anything shorter than a 1 to 5, we're just not going to be able to repeat that speed. Therefore, we don't see speed performance increases. If we want to focus on improving muscular endurance, we hit that 30 to 60 second time frame, and we give them 30 to 90 seconds of recovery. So that's a 1 to 1 or 1 to 3 work rest ratio. This keeps us right in that perfect target zone. Aerobic power, we like to go a 1 to 3 minute work time with a 1 to 3 minute rest. That's a 3 to 1 to 1 to 1 work rest ratio. Typically the minute on, 2 minutes on, a minute off, 3 minutes on, a minute off. Those types of bouts, trying to hold that steady pace or hold that performance consistent. And from an aerobic endurance perspective, 5 to 60 minutes of work, basically no rest. In a 5 to 1 block, that's about as low as we would go, up to a 60 to 1, just 60-minute continuous effort. So what's our best option for groups? Well, that 30 to 60-minute workout, if we're alternating between bouts on the curve, bouts of strength, bouts on the curve, bouts of strength, they're going to get consistent workout for 60 minutes anyway. So we don't really need to hit that steady state aerobic endurance too much with groups, which allows for a more enjoyable session for them, less monotonous. From an aerobic power perspective, this is bad timing for groups, because if we want them to work for 2 minutes on, a minute off, we can only have one person on the curve, which limits our group size. So what we like to do is we like to shift that back into more of a muscular endurance or a minute off. From a speed and power perspective, we look at the 5 to 15 second blocks. These are great for groups because of the short work time, long rest time. We can have multiple players on a single curve, so we can expand our group size and still be getting the appropriate amount of rest time with the intensity and effort levels that we need. And then back to that muscular endurance, aspect, that 30 on, 30 off, 60 on, 60 off, great for a 1 to 1 work rest ratio. If we want to really start to challenge their ability to hold strong paces, we can go a 30 on, 90 off on a 1 to 3, and we can have multiple players on the same curve. So once again, trying to coordinate group size, equipment options, space, and everything into these workouts with appropriate work rest ratios. So programming became so much simpler, so much easier, rather than chasing kids down the track as we're trying to fix running form, working on sprint drills. We had this enhanced feedback because the coach would stand directly next to the runner, and I could make simple cueing changes. For instance, pick your toes up a little higher, drive the knees up a little faster. And the simple changes they could instantly see on the display as they ran. We had functional power benefits, the effect of a curved surface on power. When we look at forefoot strike as they run, we noticed that we would see a more natural forefoot strike as they would run on the curve. This increased demand on the calf and ankle, and the pulling of the belt increased the demand on the hamstring. And these aspects were both linked to performance improvements, as well as strength and stability around the ankle, hamstring, and hip area that we needed. So we also got a reduction of injury risk. Did all this increase impact forces? This forefoot strike and this running surface actually decreased impact forces. When you look at a 2-mile run, we had a 36% decrease in G-forces per minute as far as impact goes, compared to turf, compared to a road run, and a 14% different compared to turf. When we compared it to hill sprinting and turf sprints, we also noticed that even sprinting on the curve, we had less impact forces compared to hills and turf. So could this transfer to outdoor performance? Improvements in speed and power endurance. We looked at a 400-meter sprinter that came to us after track season, his junior year, and dropped, we did 2 times a week, 30-minute interval sessions, and he dropped his 400-meter time from a 56 down to a 55. So basically took a second off his 400-meter time after the track season, just doing interval work on the curve. Took some time off between June and right before the track season started. Came back in, ran a 56.3, dropped down to a 54 before track season started, and by the end of track season had dropped off, had a new PR, 52.9. Got a college scholarship, is now a Navy SEAL, and still comes back and asks for interval workouts that he can do on the curve. So we basically had a decrease in sprint time during periods of just using the curve that was higher than his actual performance during the season. So what did we learn? Inclusion of the curve in these group sessions improved the ability to coach form, technique, and tempo. We reduced impact forces and lowered our risk of injury. We improved functional power, speed, and endurance. We increased energy demand and calorie burn. That's just due to the pulling of the belt, and Woodway has those studies. And we improved body composition and work capacity. And we did several studies looking at body comp work, just doing walking in between sets, between strength sets. And we saw as much as a 3% decrease in body fat in 3 weeks from just adding the walks. So basically, enjoyable, sustainable, and productive? Yes. And back to our effectiveness equals fitness level times value. Being able to coach form and tempo and technique and talk to them about the way they run and see those improvements in stride increase their value, the perceived value of what they were getting. They could see the speed increase. Doing the cardiovascular speed and interval type training program on the curve improved their fitness level. Now their work capacity is higher. They can attack things with more effort and more attention. So basically, we're building that fitness level. We're building the value of the program. They're increasing their effort, and the effectiveness of this program became very, very high. So let's explore these circuit concepts. And I'll get through this fairly quickly, and we can take some questions at the end if we want. But creation of a block circuit. So how can we put this knowledge to use in design? We wanted to combine all benefits into a single program. Now, different times of the season will have slightly different benefits, but we still wanted to hit the cardio and the strength in a single program because we didn't have much time during the week with these groups. We undulate the strength focus and the cardio focus. So within a workout, we may start with a high intensity, high metabolic demand strength exercise. And as the workout goes on, those strength exercises will become less metabolic demanding while we pick up the metabolic demand of the cardio, increasing speed, increasing time, increasing effort. We created a more enjoyable way to train. So mixing slower runs with more demanding strength, moderate runs with moderate strength demands, and then high intensity runs with strength demands that were relatively low. The athlete didn't fear fatigue because they always knew that they had one of those next blocks to recover. So they hit everything with a little bit more effort. We were also able to build in progressions. For instance, if you had a group that was running on the curve and a group that was doing a squatting or a jumping pattern, we could have one athlete doing aggressive weighted jump squats. We could have one athlete doing body weight jump squats. We could have one athlete doing just squatting patterns. So it allowed us to take the same pattern, focus on that pattern and its outcome, but create progressions within a group that was very easy to coach. So organizing the cardio blocks. So basically, we take that first 5 minutes and we might start with an aerobic power low intensity of 5 minute on, 1 minute off. Then we would do a strength exercise. Then we'd come back to the curve and we do something for more muscular endurance. So maybe a minute on, minute off, a little bit higher speed, a little bit faster. After another strength exercise, we'd come back and do another 5 minute block on the curve where we might focus on muscular endurance, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. And then after our last strength exercise, we finished with a speed and power. Now, this is not a max speed sprint, but more of a more high intensity effort. Now, the strength exercises during this time would have been getting low. So you might finish with like a push-up or a bent over row or something like that to save the legs. So when they get back over, they finish with something fast. They feel energetic. They feel like they can put out good effort in that last block. Over the course of 30 to 60 minutes, we got that aerobic capacity. So we were able to target that. So we were able to hit pretty much all aspects within one workout, which I know is not the ultimate goal all the time, but this is just an example. Another way might be to flip that intensity. So you could start with the speed and power and then progress to the slow aerobic end at the end. This might be something we might do as the season starts to approach, where we want to get that speed while they're fresh, and we want to make sure we get everything we can out of it. But then we want them to be able to sustain those paces for longer periods of time because we know they'll have to do it on the field. So a curved block circuit workout. So early season, we may do these types of runs on the curve. So we may do what we call a 20-20-20 walk, jog, run. That is a 20-second walk, 20-second jog, 20-second run. We might repeat that 5 times. That's 5 minutes, and they're off. We look to target about a half mile to 0.6 miles, distance during that with some of our, fitter people. Just basic aerobic change of pace work. We might do 5-minute runs, 2-minute runs, 60-second runs, 45-second runs, 30-second runs. All of these, with the exception of the 2-minute off and the 5-minute off, can be done with 2 people on one curve. And the 20-20-20. In some cases, we might throw those ladders in during early season. So if we were doing this more as individual programming and not group programming, we might throw in those ladder type structures, 5-2-1, 1-2-3. So 1 set of 5, 2 sets of 2-minute runs, 3 sets of 1-minute runs, and then back down the ladder. We might progress that to a 60-45-30 ladder, which gets a little bit more aggressive in the speeds. These are all in a 1-to-1 work rest ratio. So 60 on 60 off 3 times, 45 on 40 off 4 times, 30 on 30 off 5 times, and then back down the ladder. As we get into our mid-season blocks, we use what we call a 30-second breakdown. This 30-second breakdown, you start every run on the minute. So you start with a 30-second run, followed by a 30-second walk. Then a 20-second run, followed by a 40-second walk. 15-second run, followed by a 45-second walk. 10, 50, and 5:55. So it starts with a slower pace, builds up. As the work time goes down, the rest time increases. So getting back into our 1-to-5 to 1-to-10 work rest ratio by those sprints at the end. This is just building them up, focused on form in the beginning, running mechanics and efficiency, and then getting into max speed. We also might do what we call a 2-2-2. This is a 75% of max speed hold for 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off twice, then a 1-minute rest. Then 15 second on, 15 second off twice at 75% of max speed. This allows us to focus on form, efficiency, mechanics, holding those runs at 75% of max speed for an extended period of time. If we had 10 to 20 minute blocks with these people, we might do a 30-second breakdown ladder, or take those 2-2-2 form holds and progress them to 3-3-3s or 5-5-5s with some of our athletes that need more speed endurance or have the work capacity to do that. In the late season, our blocks shift more towards 10-second holds and 5-second holds. So we get more into speed-based stuff. So these circuits can progress in nature from a rhythmic base of work capacity into speed work by late season. And we've had tremendous benefit and results with our soccer populations doing this during the season, where they feel fast and strong at the end, recover quick, and can repeat those performances. So building a block circuit, what strength exercises do we use? When we're training for body control, stability, positioning, so early stages, we might want to throw in a single-legged activity like a lunge or a step up or a rear leg elevated split squat, a double-legged activity, a squat, deadlift type thing. We usually use dumbbells because it's quick and easy to switch out. Some sort of horizontal pulling like a bent over row, horizontal pressing, and then get into core work. So basically hitting great movement patterns, biggest bang for the buck exercises. And yeah, we leave a lot of little isolated things out, but this gives us that biggest bang for the buck that we can get within the course of this workout. Again, the strength stuff will start off high and progress to lower, while the cardio would start off lower and progress to higher. And this allows us to accommodate that fatigue and create an enjoyable, sustainable, productive workout. So an advanced variation of this might look something like this. This would be early off season when we're looking for more power endurance. So not necessarily extremely high load, but high metabolic demand. So we're hitting that aerobic power and muscular endurance, high volume, total body power. We might do something like this. And this is an actual workout and heart rate graph. So we start off our exercises. We might start with a barbell high pull snatch. So not for speed, but more for rhythm and technique. And that would be right there. So you can see that heart rate starts to increase, followed by a 5-minute bout on the curve that just gets the legs warmed up, gets them ready to go. Come right back into a barbell split squat. Heart rate gets a little higher into our 2-minute blocks. Heart rate gets a little higher into our squat to press motion. Heart rate gets a little higher. And now we're starting to get into that fatigue zone. So we hit the 1-minute blocks, but they're getting that extra minute of rest. So they can still recover and perform. And then the exercises start to decrease. So we go into a bent over row. Well, they recover metabolically. So conditioning wise, heart rate wise is down. So we can hit those 30-second blocks really hard. And then we might go into a barbell back squat and into a 5-minute run and finish with push-ups. So just an example of how you might do this with something a little bit more advanced, building more work capacity. So putting it all together, design, group switch out and equipment needs. First, take an inventory of what you have at your disposal and how much equipment you need. What are you targeting? Work rest ratios. So pick an element of the program to hit during that circuit. Get a primary focus. Is it strength or is it cardio or is it a mixed focus? And then isolate those exercises and create your organization structure. Build them into blocks of cardio and strength. And we're good. So I tried to get that done as efficiently as I can. I might have left a few minutes left for questions. So if anybody has any questions, I'll turn the mic back over to Paul and we can go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That was great. A lot of great information. Sure everybody got a lot out of it. I'm looking to see if there's any questions coming up right now. Let me know. You can either raise your hand or send us a question if you want to. If not, then you got Scott's information on the screen right now. And you can send that out to Scott, or you can do information at the Woodward as well. If you have any questions for them. So I appreciate time, Scott, and I'm going to see if there's I'm going to move to
Okay. Do you want me to stop the share?
Yes. Oh, actually, I got a couple questions that just came up. Hold on one second.
Okay.
You still see it? Can you see the questions?
I am getting to that screen right now.
I'll ask the question. Maybe I missed it, but do you use this type of circuit workout for athletes who want to focus on strength? So do you...
Yes, and you would use it in the early stages. So the early stages where you're going a little bit more for kind of work capacity, setting the foundation for them to be able to do more work and recover quicker, more rapidly. So we would start that. We would start that off in the early stages just to kind of build that base. We have seen strength improvements, especially with newer returning athletes will get stronger in this type of a circuit. However, your most advanced that are focused on maximal levels of strength, probably not going to be what you would want to run year round with them. But during certain phases, it works well.
All right, that looks good. I think we have a, I'm just going to just unmute Eric real quick. I'm not sure if he wants to say a word or two, but otherwise, I think we're all set. Thanks
Good.
a lot,
Thank you,
Scott.
guys. And
Oh,
if
there's
you have
Eric.
any questions, yeah,
No,
go
just
ahead.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. Great. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Okay. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me. Would love to answer them and give you my feedback.
Oh, wait, hold on one second. Oh, just a lot of good compliments.
Okay.
Okay, everybody's saying thank you. That's good. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.